All right, so welcome to the YouTube version of our live trading session. A late Friday, long weekend for Canadians. I'm not sure if there's any long weekend going down in the US. I don't believe so. But so lots going on. A little bit of action, not a little bit, a ton of action in the NFT world. I have spent the last week being extremely busy, which has been unfortunate. It's taken away some of my attention towards the space and what I enjoy the most, and that is seeing activity in the market. Obviously, everything has been driven from Blur and the Blur drop and the extra liquidity. A few 100 million pumped into the space. I believe that's correct. About 30% of the drop. And so with that extra liquidity, and then of course the brilliant season two, which has incentivized even more liquidity into the market. A lot of farming going on. Will say that the farming, from my understanding on early going, is something that you must be very well aware of. You want to make sure that if you are doing bid farming, that you are doing it in a way that you're not taking L's on the NFT trades that you're making, because you're not going to make profit from the farming, right? So, and because there's been such a stream of additional farming going on, the rewards and the profit and the degree of value they get out of it diminishes. At least one would assume. I mean, it hasn't been proven out to be the case, right? But definitely, Blur has you know really taken the attention of the NFT space, and they have evolved their platform in a way that I think NFT traders like. Obviously, there's a clear incentive to it, and with that, people have adopted, and to the extent that when you now go to OpenSea, you get a wonderful message that for limited time that they are not charging any fees on OpenSea platform, so that 2.5% has disappeared, and the battle between Blur and OpenSea is full on. I will say that OpenSea is inefficient, and anytime you're running OpenSea, it's killing your browser efficiency. So in that respect alone, I like to see Blur be effective. I still generally appreciate the look and feel of OpenSea versus anything else. So um, time will tell where everything it goes. But hopefully everyone was able to get at least a little bit of rewards out of Blur, and if you were farming, then a lot of rewards. But yeah, so that's kind of where things are at. Over the last 9 months, we're seeing our highest volumes really since Other Deed, which is crazy. It's almost yearly highs, and a lot of that is farming activity. I'm gonna see if I can find a way to measure farming activity in an effective way. It's not necessarily wash trading; it is trades, but some of that volume is really artificial. But artificial to what we're used to. Maybe not artificial as things move forward in the NFT space, as this liquidity now all of a sudden exists, which is I think a good value to have within this space, is that additional liquidity and consistency of being able to make a move on an NFT, or at least a collection that is seeing consistent volume. So that is my overall summary for the YouTubes and for anyone that can attend. Um, for those that are here, definitely ask questions, talk about what's going on. Like I said, I'm catching up a little bit. I've had a bit of a chaotic week, which sucks. But we're here now, and we're getting caught up, and want to discuss the market as we go into the weekend.
Hey Rhodes,
Yo,
um, have you seen, have you entered OpenSea today yet?
yeah, I just went in a little earlier, and I seen that they had cut their fees. I think that's what you're alluding to.
You're
Um,
right.
so they're in a bit of panic mode.
Yeah.
A bit of a answer back to Blur coming in really quite strong, and actually saying that Blur is not charging uh, fees as well again here, and being on the offense given how successful I think their token drop has gone. So um, all of it I think is generally good for the NFT trader and consumer and collector. Project wise, it's yet to be seen. Obviously, projects have received a portion of airdrop as well, and maybe that is something that helps out. And I think Blur has taken a stance that they will honor fees as long as it's on the contract. Is kind of their process. But we'll see how that goes. But overall, this bit of chaos and bit of volume and everything else has been a big boon for the NFT market. A lot of collections are up, but we're seeing it kind of almost like a bit of a up and down yo-yo effect as that farming cycles through various collections, and that's kind of the general trend that's happened over the last couple of days. How goes it, Paradox? How goes it, Argol? I'd say Argol.
Yeah,
What?
that's right.
Perfect. And obviously King hanging out as well. What's your guys' thoughts? What do you think about the airdrop, the volume, farming, blur, anything like that? What's kind of your first impressions?
I guess I'm curious how Blur is gonna make money if they're not like charging fees.
How Blur is gonna make money?
Yeah,
I think the general side of it is the tokenomics behind the platform itself. So roughly 30% I think were distributed in the terms of Blur tokens. They own obviously a percentage of that. The investors also own a percentage of that, and we're able to buy it at a quite low, much lower rate. So as that token has value, then they have generated essentially wealth that way. So then they would have that ability to sell tokens or as tokens vest out. And then the other side of it, the other idea would be that as time goes on and as they gain market share, they would have the ability to and they had introduced a 0.5% fee, and so really the early stages, as looks rare tried, as X2Y2 tried, is to try to capture market share, become the dominant NFT website, and as such, then they can introduce the ability to earn as it goes on. So right now, early stages, the whole goal is to capture market share, and they've done that per se. A lot of that market share isn't necessarily um, true. Volume still exists on OpenSea, and OpenSea hasn't declined in volume, and a lot of the volume that happens on Blur is happening on a concentrated amount of collections. So, like I said, I want to get some deep dive analysis on the Blur activity to better understand. I know NFT Statistics has done some, and I'm sure other people have done some. But for my understanding, my sakes, and my ability to share to members is to also understand what the volume looks like, and there's been analysis on the volume of individual tokens being traded, the duration of tokens being held, and by tokens NFTs obviously, for the individual collections, and is this activity true activity, or is it just bid farming, which is the general consensus of the activity itself. So hopefully that answers your question, and yeah, it's interesting to see. So I can pull up the activity that has happened here over the last few days, and you can see the huge spike. In fact, this spike doesn't my chart doesn't go that high. Kind of wrecks it once we get this chaos and volume.
So
But if
that's
we,
what's killing gas right now, huh?
I would assume
All that
so.
volume.
That the volume from both the claim and the farming, etc., has made gas higher, and it makes it harder for these really micro projects, free projects, etc., that we were actively watching and degenning and on, much harder as the gas fees increase, right? So, what was the volume on this particular day? It was It's crazy. So
Yeah, there was a couple I looked at today, and I was gonna sweep like 3 at like 0.004, and it was like $25 gas.
mm-hmm.
Most people just import their token though, and they're just using it to buy things or convert to ETH. Or are people actually keeping that?
I think there's a mix of it. I think some of the larger holders are holding it with the idea and vision of where Blur is going. I think there's also a general idea that the $1 range is kind of in where it's kind of expected to hold value. People may have been selling around that range. It's really hard to say. There's also the idea that Blur or not Blur, sorry, but Looks Rare, X2Y2, Pseudo, the previous tokens that have come out. I think it was about a 2 week range where the peak was seen for that token. So people holding to achieve that mark. Um, the way I looked at it, and I didn't time it very well, but I looked at it and said, okay, this is free. I'm going to go ahead and claim and take and cash out, and so be it. And take that little bit of a reward and treat myself, so to speak. But holding on to the token isn't necessarily a bad call either. But claiming, make sure you're claiming under ideal gas circumstances because you'll lose a lot to the gas fees on it, which is not what you really want to do. So yeah, 60,000 volume versus a general average in the 30K range when farming was most active for Blur and overall NFT volume, and then that big spike. I know now we're looking like we'll probably get 50K or so maybe here today as well, or maybe that's tapped out. I know that the time zones are a little hard to follow as it for this data, so the day may already be over or near over. The trader ratio hasn't really changed a lot. It's bumped up a little bit, but we're not seeing a ton of new entrants into terms of trader and all that kind of stuff. So, a lot of this boom is just, like I said, farming and, extra liquidity entering the market. Probably a really good time to have sold any projects that, either not looking to hold it long term or to take this likely near term pump. Um, it is likely that projects will return back to their floor in some cases, and then be an opportunity to buy back in at a lower price and kind of shave off a bit of those profits. So the ideal play was definitely buying where possible going into this drop and then selling a couple days later, which in hindsight is always easy to to grab on. I know I had been talking about the impending liquidity and how that will be likely ideal for NFTs, but not necessarily seeing the picture of buy on the way in and sell on the way out, which I think would have been a pretty effective play for profits. 10-20% on a lot of collections, but 10%, then you apply fees, not as ideal, right? So that's always the hard part. As for collection leaders, we have, let's take a look. So on the weekly, Other Deed is really the ideal farming collection. what happens in the whole farming process is that, to my understanding, anyways, is that you're placing your bids at a set rate, and going through and placing those bids is kind of your activity, and as long as there's not a dump in floor price, you're safe. But in the instance where bids and farming and buying gets pushed up, then either whales or people will sell into that, and that's where you can kind of get be basically a bit of a holder, and in doing so, you could get trapped and lose on your bidding and farming. So that's the risk point. And I think some that are inexperienced in the whole blur farming side of it can get caught. Whereas like a collection like Other Deed that has such a large amount of NFTs, it's a little bit more stable, but there's also that risk. And I think Franklin was one that unloaded a whole bunch of Other Deeds, just capturing some of that uh, bump in floor price due to farming, which is really what's going on, right? As demand is pushed up for Other Deed uh, because of the constant bid pressure to get those bids in, and in essence, that's pushing the floor up. So you'll see whales likely sell out on that, and then as the floor price kind of gasses off or slows down, then either buy back in or what the case may be. So, but it's probably the most safe collection to do the farming on. But it's at a floor price right now of 1.98. We wasn't long ago that we were below 1 ETH on Other Deed, and so there is some inherent risk with Other Deed in terms of uh, bid trading. So just to be aware of that.
Hey, did you get whitelist for comeback kids?
I don't know.
I
Not
did, and I was just looking at the Discord, and I just left it.
It looks like a freaking scam.
Yeah. I literally just left it 2 minutes ago. Like,
That's funny because I just started looking right now, and I was like, "What?" I was like, they cut the general chat off. You can't talk in
yeah,
general chat. There's no like official links that I'm seeing anywhere for any of the stuff, like no contract or I don't know, man.
and it's really an expensive mint, like, for that kind of environment.
Oh yeah, .04. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a no go.
Yeah.
In any
Yeah.
of
I'm
those
out of
cases,
that one.
it's always ideal to try and wait. Of course, projects also over allocate to try to get past that. The project doesn't want to have a slow whitelist mint either. So there's all kinds of different games that play. But if you're whitelist minting, it's nice to be able to see that initial demand on it, and wait a bit anyways, right? So that way you don't get caught on a project that might look good, but then all of a sudden it's not.
Yeah, it's like, for example, Ghost Boy that minted today. Mint was like, I think was 0.025, and they're sitting on 0.35 ETH right now. So, but that was like by a co-founder of Cool Cats, so makes sense.
Kind of.
It's like the OpenSea link on their page on their website doesn't even take you to a collection on OpenSea.
For Ghost Boy?
No,
No,
for
Comeback
Oh,
Kids.
okay.
comeback kids.
Oof. Maybe they should come back another time and they got it all
Oh
figured
yeah,
out.
I their actual OpenSea link was in the Discord, and yeah, they have 11 items.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's about right.
hmm
Interesting level here for Ghost Boy. I would
Yeah, I
suspect.
think they bumped to 0.44, something like that,
Yeah,
right?
right. 0.4, 0.45 maybe. In
hmm
there, in around that range. It needs to kind of move up from this 0.33, 0.35 range to show some strength. Otherwise, it's that quick early hype and then a slow retracement. But I mean, they look cool, but like my hesitation is it's cool cats. I mean, they're not in the best light, although they have really moved. They were what 2 ETH project. They're up to 3, so they've taken a really good rebound here lately. And I haven't even had time to sit on the Magically page and watch activity over this last week. That's how crazy it's been, which is just like, timing wise, just the worst week because it's been kind of the most exciting, biggest week. But I went away this weekend with the wife, which was really nice. But then coming into Valentine's Day and the blur drop and all that kind of stuff, I have been so swamped that I haven't been able to be on top of it, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, checks dipped too. So
They have dipped very hard, down about 60% from their highs. Of course, there's the 2 collections now with checks, if I'm not mistaken. So they have the original and then they have the
oh yeah, you're right.
burned version, which when I found that out, and I don't know if that was probably on our last session, so last Friday, I talked about how I thought that was very bearish for the collection because the appeal in the first place of the open edition and the burns is it becomes deflationary. So now when you're burning to create a new collection, like that to me seems counterproductive to the value that was there in the first place. So I'm not impressed by that. And to me, it seems more of a economical process for Jack versus anything else. So, and I mean, also the bearishness kind of comes too, and there's like he's got so many collections going on right now too. Um, it's hard for that focus to remain solely on checks. I think it's a lightning in a bottle, not a totally indifferent from Goblin Town, so to speak, where the circumstances were right across the board, and he hit that lightning in a bottle. But when that instance happens, you have to really, excuse the pun, but check yourself in terms of what is the fundamentals behind this. What is the thesis going on for why checks are performing so well? And really, the deflationary mechanism of it is what I thought was the really strength of it all. And when it was no longer a deflationary kind of movement for the way he was handling it, that's a lot less positive. Yeah, you see other deed with a lot of this volume here. And that would be the WETH blur bid farming on blur, everything going through there, which is just
It's crazy.
right. It's just constant. So the bids go in at 2, and then you get your bid accepted, you hold it, and then 3 hours later you're selling it, and that's just a constant cycle. And then that activity is where people are hoping to earn more blur token. But as more and more people do it, I don't know if that distribution gets distributed more thinly across the people that are doing the farming, right? So then that profitability of that farming, you'd have to assume decreases because it's not like they have an infinite supply of blur token. So
Yeah,
it'll be
definitely the farming was undervalued before the
yeah.
first drop,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's overvalued.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
that's what I would say.
Yeah, it's definitely being overdone, and you're paying any kind of royalty on it. And I'm not sure. I'm assuming that there is a fee to the trade, or maybe not. So when you're trading the other deed via blur, are you paying any royalties? If not, then there's less risk in it. But if you're paying a 5%, and then also you're not making a 5% blur token on every trade. So you would have to think that there's no fee there. at which point then you're at least capturing the blur token on the activity, and then as long as you're not losing value on the other deed itself, then you're a little bit better. 2,200 bids at 1.99. Just an insane amount of bid volume in there. But you have to have the bid in. You don't even have to necessarily make the buy. It's you have the bid in, and as long as you have the bid in within the range on a top collection, then you are basically earning tokens for the duration that that bid is lasting in there. And you can add your bid and cancel your bid kind of free will. So that's why these bids are hovering right close to the floor, but not necessarily on the floor.
Mm. And do you get more if it gets accepted?
I would assume you do from the trading activity, but I'm not super familiar with the bid farming process. Unfortunately, I mean I didn't participate in doing any farming through uh, season one, which I think we all have regrets on.
Yeah.
Especially
For sure.
when we there was totally no fees on Blur at that time. Um, and now everyone is trying to participate. And, you look at it and say, okay, well, if everyone's trying to do it, then does it make a lot of sense? I don't know. And I've heard more cautionary tales than positive tales in the first place. So, to my understanding, is the astute farmers are holding off at this point in time. So, uh, waiting to try and figure out more on that, and then also learn that process for farming, because if there is an angle on it, then by all means, I mean we should be on top of it. So um, it's going to take a bit more research. So now the other question is, does it make sense to either maybe accumulate some token? Is that token going to go up in value? I don't know. I think at last check, like I said, the $1 range was kind of the general consensus for the value of Blur tokens. So we're right there right now. If it goes down, then it's probably a positive get. But if it's much above that, then you might hesitate to accumulate Blur token. Yeah. So did I ever lose at scale? 2,000 other deed sales, 4,300 ETH volume, just crazy volume. And that's down day over day from the previous day on other deed. But as long as that collection is going up over time, then I mean, you're not losing when you're doing the farming, at least in that respect. But you've kind of seen a bit of yo-yo in some of these collections where they've pushed up and then gone down the next day in the 24-hour, and then they're back up again. So some risk to it that way. Kid called Beast. I totally missed this one. I did not like the art and faded it there, but I guess anything called Beast, maybe.
Well, I actually did mint a beast,
Mm-hmm.
and I sold it to buy my B3L. So
Good. I mean, that's
yeah.
welcome here. I mean, obviously, when you sold it, it's continued
Uh,
to push forward, right? So
yeah, I mean, I sold it above floor, but I mean, not current floor, obviously.
yeah.
But I actually don't regret it because of like the timing and all
Mm-hmm.
that stuff. And And there's sketchy situations there around that community. So I don't know.
That was kind of my initial impression on it, and like I said, also fading the art, so it just never really jumped on my radar. But clearly, it's continued to perform well. Um, I don't like. I mean, when you use Magically or Alpha Sharks, and the way this is laid out to be able to see kind of history of a project, and then you go to Blur and you try to do the same, and it's just it's better than OpenSea, but man, it is it ever not nowhere near where Magically is. And that's the other play is Magically. They have a token coming. I don't understand. Like I don't know if they're generating much volume. Obviously, their timing of it compared to what's going on with Blur right now, it is hard for them. So it's hard to say whether or not Magically and Magically token can kind of produce anything. But in the terms of a trading platform, it's still phenomenal compared. Floor price almost reached 2.5 ETH. Wild.
Yeah. There was a 50th sale too for a 1 of 1 last week, I think.
That's high. I don't know what the general rule of thumb is for a 1 of 1 versus floor in terms of that ratio. I always thought it would be about a 10x multiplier. So 50 ETH is that's like a 20x to what the floor is. Obviously, that'll vary by collection and the amount of 1-on-1s that are out there as well. But maybe a bit of accumulation before it pushes up again. I like this raccoon one.
Is there a lister in X2Y2? No,
There is one on X2Y2, yeah, and it's well below floor at the moment. Although 0.5 is where the floor
yeah,
is kind of
min
held.
price.
Yeah. Occasionally there's that actually that one WETH offer was that's just sweet. Win too, I think. Which one was it? It was a 0.35 that was accepted.
Yeah, it was. I think. Yeah, I remember.
The other
I
one,
think
the
Savage.
firehead with the backwards hat. I'm so jealous of that one. A month ago, 0.35. Sweet beast.
Yeah, where I think there's some missed opportunity right now. It's on the pass, on the passes with, because the pass with is sitting at. I mean, the floor is sitting at 5 ETH,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I mean, if you get a sweet with offer there, you might be accepted
Yeah,
because
I've
there's no volume, right?
definitely wondered about that. Of course, there's been no trades on it, so it's you'll wonder if there's just people that are not active that hold that, because you would have thought they would have accepted some offers or at least converted. But I have watched and been disappointed to see that obviously the floor is not declining, but wanting to be able to be there to pick one up if it ever got to the right price. But um, yeah, it's been 3 months since the last sale, but WETH wise, 3 months as well at 0.3. But there has been no WETH acceptance at all. Obviously,
Yeah,
this.
but there hasn't really been a high width offer yet.
No, it's
I mean,
true.
I've checked it, and the highest has been like 0.1,
Mm, yeah,
and
yeah, like something like a 0.35, 0.4 would be worthwhile having out there.
yeah,
Probably on both
or even a
collections.
0.35. No, it's just my thoughts. I mean, I haven't done it because I'm not liquid, but
That's
if
always
if I had, yeah, if I
that's
had
always
it,
the
I
challenge,
would,
right?
yeah, I would have like the the offer there. I mean,
I haven't been using Blur a ton because I've been on Magic Loop that whole time, but I'm trying to to grasp the appeal of Blur. I mean, it's nice and condensed, which is kind of all right. But in the terms of like browsing collections, I I prefer, and maybe it's just because that's what we're used to is OpenSea. If you've been around for a while, it's hard to move off of that. Um,
right.
'Cause I mean, it does have more analytics per se than OpenSea has. Any other questions, thoughts? Welcome, Danksy, hanging out.
Yo, what's up?
How goes it?
Looking at different projects and shit. How about you?
Yeah, trying to get caught up. Did a bit of a spiel early on, but had a very busy project launch for my daytime job, which has taken my attention away this week, which kind of sucks given all the activity that's been going on. So just getting caught up, trying to grasp the understanding of the farming side of things on Blur, and obviously the additional volume and how that all plays into what is a crazy high amount of volume for NFT activity, but mainly concentrated on uh, a smaller percentage of collections and the farming and the bid farming that goes on with that. So is this something that is I mean, I think overall that it's a big positive for the NFT space. But what does it kind of mean for the marketplaces and for us in the NFT space? Kind of changes that narrative of collections where boast long-term holders and so to speak, versus now there's so much trading activity that happens because of the increased liquidity to the bids that exist. Be nice if you
What
could.
are you looking? What's moving right now? What's moving today?
Other deed has been, I mean, obviously we can a constant, right? So other deed has been heavy on the bid side of things. But really what you'd want to look at is any of these collections that are in the volume chart here for Blur, and then are they down? And if they are down, is that the opportunity for them on the kind of the swing side of things, right? As farming goes up and down from the bid activity. So Pudgy's is a pretty heavy entry, but look at the top bid at 5.4, floor price at 4.9. Is there a slight opportunity there? And that's what I would be looking at is what's down, and is there opportunity for that collection? Obviously, buying into collections that are well up is always a higher risk when all this activity going on.
Nothing. What do you think about the OpenSea? No fees.
It's a pretty heavy sign of weakness on OpenSea's part. Yeah, they're obviously reeling from everything going on Blur. I think OpenSea needs to take a step back and evaluate. What's the volume happening on Blur, and what's the volume happening on OpenSea, right? And I think what the general idea is, and I want to do a dive into um, Blur activity by collection, etc., to help better kind of frame it in my mind, right? Because really, it's a cycle of volume that's happening in a reduced amount of collections. So when you look at it for the daily volume right now, other deed driving 4,000 ETH in trading activity. That's just back and forth activity, right? That's not a big hit to OpenSea's bottom line, right? Most collections are still being traded and listed and moved on OpenSea, right? So they're still, you know, um, they're still, they're still, they may be down a bit in the last couple of weeks, but they're not down significantly. They're up over the last couple of months. So they may be losing short-term market share, but I mean, showing that degree of weakness isn't going to be helpful for their brand overall, right? So continue to produce and improve the platform, and keep innovating and trying to increase the functionality. I think that's what OpenSea has to focus on, and Blur will blur, right? I think most people are using Blur. People say they prefer it. I mean, I like it only in the sense that it's great for seeing overall volume, because you can see Blur volume, but also the general market volume. Otherwise, I still prefer the look and feel of OpenSea. And I don't know if that's just because that's what we're used to from the early days, but OpenSea needs to continue to innovate. Maybe they can come up with a bit of a trading page or something like that involves all collections or all platforms or something like that. Just different ways that make it more effective for maybe the power user, so to speak. But yeah, they're showing weakness right now. I don't think it's ideal. They need to just kind of continue plugging forward with what they've done and hold their stance to royalties, and 2.5% marketplace fee may be a little heavy, but going to zero for a short term isn't. I don't know if that really helps them at all.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna be a race to a bottom. Um, what else can they do, right? I mean they keep it on like blurs. I don't know. I feel like OpenSea is kind of where people start out with NFTs anyways, right? And then if you're actively trading, you go to Blur or some other marketplace.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think aggregators are really the what is the ideal place to be using, right? We use Alpha Sharks magically, that sort of thing, where you can see listings from all platforms and away you go. Um, I think that's the best place to be looking at collections. I mean, obviously there's a clear incentive to try and use Blur, whether that's bidding or whether that's buying, for trying to capture some of that those juicy rewards. But those rewards get less juicy the more people try to use the platform. So um, yeah, but like I said, it's a lot of it's likely concentrated on Blur. It's 7,600 listed. Other deeds on Blur. And then if we go
Just a
to,
quick question. What happens if you buy something that says restricted on Blur?
you can still buy it. You can't list it on OpenSea, but you can still list it on Blur, I believe.
Okay, thanks.
3,300 OpenSea listings for other deed. And then if we go to, can I filter this out to, how do we get that filter? I thought I just clicked on the bottom here. Might be easier to do on magically. $3,900 from Blur versus 5,700 total unique. So a little bit of overlap there. Very similar total listings. So it's not like, you know, um, these collections aren't active on both OpenSea and Blur. So an example of, do you have a particular collection that has a restricted on or shown on Blur? And is it a Blur listing or is it like an X2Y2 listing? Or looks rare?
I don't remember. I just
Actually, I can find someone. So the restricted ones are listed on Blur. It just can't be sold on OpenSea. So you can list and sell on Blur, but you can't. So as say Blur takes over, these items that are um, not being able to be traded on OpenSea kind of become maybe a little bit more liquid, a little bit more attractive for the right collection, right? Because you would expect that Like I don't know where like OpenSea if it loses market share to a critical tipping point, then Blur becomes the main platform, and then at that point, holding an NFT that is restricted on OpenSea isn't necessarily as detrimental. So that could be something to watch for, especially as Blur has increased in popularity, and maybe why you don't see it on something like Other Deed, although maybe those aren't being actively pushed on the farming side of it. You would expect that you would see some here. I believe that the bidding from Blur doesn't pick up restricted items.
Yeah, no, they don't.
Yeah, pretty good run on a lot of collections from the increased liquidity. That's for sure.
Yo, Danksy. Looks like we got decent interaction for the poker for B3L tokens. There's like 25 people that say that they would
Yeah.
play.
We'll probably do Poker Go or whatever it is. Poker Now.
Yeah, poker now. That's what I see everybody else using. Like the dude Big Worm from Journey. That's what they use. So it'll be cool to get everybody playing kind of a little bit because we're going to be invited to their big tournament in April. It just hasn't been set up yet.
Yeah. I mean, I'm set up this weekend or something.
Yeah, maybe get a game Sunday night or something.
So
See who can make it when.
so what do you need to participate? Just a mobile
It's
phone or
free. Yeah, you can
or
do it on your phone or on the
oh,
computer.
and
Either one, it works. And then we're gonna give away B3L tokens to the winners. So it'll basically be like they'll tell us what to enter the token in for, and then if we win it, it can just be transferred directly to them. You know what I mean?
and is it what tournament style or is it just hand style and whoever
Yeah, it'll
accumulates the
be
most?
Texas Hold'em tournament style, but I'm sure we can do like some kind of leaderboards and stuff, like weekly, monthly leaderboards, shit like that.
Sounds fun.
Or I think the app will actually track all of that stuff on its own for like if we make a B3L club, I think it'll track everybody's individual, games and everything. But it's something to do, and I've always been into poker, so
I've had some.
Yeah. I'm gonna try set up this weekend.
You can see all the restricted other deeds are hiding out on SudoSwap.
All right, you guys, I'm gonna head out real quick.
Sounds good. Thanks for hanging out.
Right.
See
Yeah,
you
I
guys.
can. I'll see you later, man. I can start. It looks like I can just run the tournament right from my thing if you want. So, we should be good to go whenever.
Yep. Let me know. Text me.
Cool cats are the biggest top end mover.
Yeah, I guess it's the speculation behind the Ghost Boy thing too. Correlation between those.
Which is interesting because I mean, I don't know like what that would do. Like why? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, I mean, there's no really a partnership per se, just that, just that it was by the same founder and stuff. Yeah, you know, people like to speculate.
been quite active. That's for sure. And they had a spaces as well and things like that. So some activity to drive a little bit of momentum. But like, is this on the 15th? So that's just off the blur. Must have been some news. Also just a cool cats rebrand. Made it pump. But it was definitely a short term pump. And that was it. Just up slightly because it was up 3 ETH on the 15th, and then that's back down to 2.3. Awesome. Any more thoughts, questions? If not, I'm going to wrap it up here a bit. Head into the long weekend, which means cook dinner for the family.
What are you cooking today, Alex?
I don't know. I got a meal box for this week. First time in a few months that I've ordered one. I think actually it's probably I think there's a steak meal that I'm cooking up. So we got some steak and potatoes going on, which will be delicious for a Friday. Um, I can't recall what the last one is there, but I think some kind of Asian ground turkey dish. Be the other option. So we'll see if the wife picked it out or not, which one she wants to eat. But
All right, enjoy it.
I am getting hungry talking about it. So thanks for showing up. A little bit of a quiet Friday one. I believe things are settling for me IRL on the day job, so I can be heavy into it here next week. So we'll be back on the regular and look forward to it. So Thank you guys, and we'll catch you next time.
Right. See you, Rhodes. Thanks.
Cheers. See you later, YouTube. Peace out.